Hello and welcome all the teachers again for our session. Okay, let me just wait for all our Zoom members to connect in first. So then we are going to start with the session. So yes, again, good evening teachers, welcoming all of you for today's session. I am Niharika Ghosh. And today also I will be taking the session with all of you, and today's topic will be on mental illnesses, which comes under the 21 RPWD Act, which was modified basically in 2016. So constantly we have been talking about in all our previous sessions about inclusion, about inclusive education, and now till this date, for all the sessions we have more or less covered up all the 21 disabilities, some of them the neurodevelopmental disorders. Yes, we have discussed them in quite detail, which we had sessions in English and Hindi as well. And last time we had covered up till the intervention plan, what we can basically do as teachers, as normal teachers also, or as special educators as well for children with special need. And today we will be starting with the sessions which is apart from, or which is a little bit different than the neurodevelopmental disorders. So today our topic will be mental illnesses and why mental illnesses, and today's session will be completely in English, and day after tomorrow we will have the same session in Hindi. So जिनको भी हिंदी में जो लोग ज़्यादा कंफर्टेबल हैं उस लैंग्वेज में, सो वो हमारे साथ परसों भी जुड़ सकते हैं. हम इस सेम टॉपिक के बारे में बात करने वाले हैं. Okay, so mental illness, why is it important? Because if we talk about the scenario nowadays, like currently if I talk about, and especially during the lockdown, constantly I think I am at least listening to every alternate day there is some kind of suicide, there is depression, and so many such traumatic events happening around us. So this being the basis of knowing and understanding and making ourselves aware of what mental illnesses are, it is not only important for that, but at least to have that sensitization for ourselves, for our children, for our family members, in terms of that teachers, we can at least give little bit, we can, you know, empathize with that particular person or that adolescent or child who is suffering from any kind of mental illness. So I will just share my screen with all of you so that we can have an in-depth understanding about the same. Okay, so just give me a moment. So mental illnesses, what is by definition, what is mental illness? So let me talk about that first. Mental illnesses are health conditions involving changes in emotions, thinking, or behavior. So whenever we talk about depression, maybe anxiety, maybe any other mental illness, which is nowadays very, very common, whether substance abuse. So we are going to eventually talk about all those aspects, all those disorders. So beforehand, we should at least understand that whenever I'm talking about that, yes, this particular child or this particular individual is having some kind of mental illness. So teachers, that means that yes, the definitely that person, that individual is having maybe little bit trouble or severe level of trouble or issues with his thinking pattern, his overall thinking process, the way he thinks, the slowness in his thinking, and also covering up the emotional aspect. That means maybe crying a lot, maybe not able to have that motivation to interact with other people, or maybe laughing a lot, or maybe showing a lot of energy. And if we talk about behavior aspect, so not even like showing a lot of energy, but behavior also includes what the other psychological symptoms are generally attached with, maybe depression, anxiety, OCD, and so on. So behavior is the first thing, teachers, whether I talk about any child, whether I talk about any adolescent. So we have to be very careful when we are making ourselves aware regarding this mental illness, whether it be any disorder. But we have to be very, very careful that firstly, overtly means whatever is visible, like physically whatever is visible for you as a teacher in that child is will be always the behaviors. So first we always pinpoint or note down or observe the behaviors per se. Then if we understand that yes, this child or this individual is having some kind of issue or some kind of disorder or symptoms, then only further we go to the emotional aspect, the thought process, and so on. So majorly we have to just remember these three things: emotions, thinking, and behavior, whenever we are talking about any kind of mental illness. So it is associated with, yes, we all know, regarding distress, that creates a lot of stress, not only teachers as an individual, for myself, but for my immediate family members, my immediate very close friends, my spouse, my children. So it's a very distressed situation for everybody, maybe in the family and around you. And also the last kind of a criteria, yes, I would say that as a criteria, how we choose or how we decipher that yes, it's a mental illness, you will just have to observe one thing, that the particular child or the individual's social, personal, and the family, and even occupational. So these three four things will be completely malfunctioned. So in a way, if I say that yes, maybe the person is into depression, but he is not having any problem in occupationally, or he may be not having any problem in interacting with the family members, or even he is doing very well at work, so maybe he may not be diagnosed under the depressive disorder, but yes, the symptoms can be very much prevailing in anybody. So we have to be very particular about these two three things. This is also teaches a very important point, the second paragraph, as you all can see, this mental illness criteria, so it has around 8 9 disorders in it, or 10 disorders in it. But particularly mental retardation, although this word has been this word actually has been substituted in year 2010 by intellectual disability. So now we currently don't use this word as mental retardation. So whenever we talk about any such child, we call the child as having intellectual disability. So mental retardation, or ID, intellectual disability, is no way a part of this mental illness. So ID is something different, mental illness something different, because mostly, as even some professionals or counselors or special educators or even teachers may have that confusion at times, that we tend to consider intellectual disability also as a part of mental illness. So this we have to very well remember before diagnosing anybody. So teachers, as I said, there are 10 disorders under mental illness. 10, so I will just say a name, and very briefly I will try to explain to everybody. Mood disorders, so basically when I talk about mood, so if this is the normal mood, so anything going above, anything going lower is some way abnormal, or some way it's not the normal. So if the mood is this and it goes higher, so it can be mania. If from it goes lower than the normal, then of course, as we all know, it's very common, it's known as depression. So depression, bipolar, mania, these are all examples and types of mood disorders. Anxiety disorders, and teachers, let me tell you, I will be discussing 4 or 5 disorders in detail in my next slide. So this is just for a brief information. So anxiety disorders, as I said, obsessive compulsive disorder, like बहुत बारी हाथ धोना, like we are doing something very repeatedly, recurrent thoughts are coming into your mind, you are still not able to fight with them, or not able to throw the thoughts out of your mind. So anxiety. Generalized anxiety, so this happens when you don't have any particular rhyme or reason, or any particular reason, but still you face a lot of anxiety symptoms. That means it's generalized anxiety. So like that, we have panic disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and so on under anxiety disorders. So if I talk, we actually commonly nowadays talk about depression, and so as that we talk about anxiety symptoms also. So just to give you a very brief understanding of the symptoms, anxiety symptoms contribute of a heavy palpitation, maybe chest pain, heaviness on the chest, breathlessness, restlessness, and a lot of sweating, maybe a frequent urination, wobbling sensation in the legs, and so on. So these are, and headaches also. So these are very common symptoms of anxiety. Third is teachers personality disorder. If you can search on Google, so I think there is a whole list of personality disorders what we actually have to cater to as psychologists. So you can also go through those aspects if somebody is very much interested in this topic. So personality can be uh, borderline personality disorder. It's a most common kind of a disorder. So it can be, nowadays it's again one, depressive personality disorder. So some kind of tendencies when a person already has since birth, they all come up after a major tragic event. So then and there actually we say that yes, the person has gone into depression or the person is having anxiety. So we actually, due to a personality symptom, we never diagnose a person with a disorder until and unless we seen a full blown episode, a problem episode happening with the person. Then only we try to diagnose the person or the child. uh, in children cases, particularly teachers, we have to be very careful before the age of 18. This is for everybody, for us to understand. Before the age of 18, we never diagnose any child or any adolescent or any teenager having any kind of personality disorder. It is majorly categorized or labeled in most of the cases after 18 years of age. So we never do that kind of a mistake. Psychotic disorders, you all must have heard that word schizophrenia. Schizotypical, there's a personality type also which is related to this one. And others also like delusions, hallucinations. So these are very common symptoms under psychotic disorder. Eating disorder, bulimia, anorexia, like you must have seen some of the models or must have seen some stories or heard some stories that few models are very very particular about just they keep on losing the weight. They don't even realize that what their body mass index is and how it should be, how much it should be, but they keep on just stop eating completely, or they may be just doing some kind of binge eating as much minimum as possible, but they don't even realize that they can faint anytime or they can have much more. uh, I have to, I think, mute all the. Okay. uh, Sir, you can please mute everyone, so once we are done with the session, so then we are going to have a question and answer round. So eating disorder. So like I said, like this anorexia, bulimia is something related to a lot of binge eating. So, but this actually is very common when we see in some of the children, not, it's not that much common, but still a lot of binge eating. Repeatedly they have to eat, but there can be a lot of quantity or very less quantity after a lot of intervals. So any kind of such eating problem is also a very big challenge nowadays coming up in so many children or in adolescents. Trauma related disorder, for example, post traumatic stress disorder, that means if somebody has gone through a very challenging situation, some maybe for example death of a spouse or husband or wife, a death of father or mother, or maybe a major accident or some natural disaster also, that may or may not lead to a person having post traumatic stress disorder. What kind of symptoms the person will give? A lot of anxiety symptoms will be related to this particular disorder. Then teachers, it's a very common and what we are seeing on an everyday basis nowadays, and it's increasing day by day, substance abuse disorder, in which it can be starting from alcohol, opium, marijuana, smoking, nicotine, and so on. So we have to be very aware firstly that when is it a disorder and when the child is slowly and gradually going towards those kind of a disorder. So we have to be very particular at this point of time. Okay, so I think there is a network issue at my end, so let me just fix it that first. Just a second, teachers. Okay.
There is some technical issue. मैं दोबारा join करूँगा.
Kalau fan ke suara, ya, boleh kau dengar?
Okay, so I'm.
मैं आपको ना host बना रहा हूँ, ठीक है?
Okay. Okay. So I'm really sorry, teachers, because there was a major connectivity issue over here. So yeah, so just going back to the point. So there is also one thing, teachers. So this actually, sir had told me long time back that there was some bit problem with my voice and the connectivity. So don't worry. In our very next slide, I am going to talk about some of the disorders in some detail. So we are just having a very brief discussion about these particular days. We know that most of the children and most of the teenagers probably are going lot towards this kind of an addiction or this kind of a habit which is not good. So we have to be very, very particular as an observant, as teachers as well, so that further we can make the parents also aware of the similar fact. Then comes attention deficit disorder. That means hyperactivity, and also 8 and the 9 point, ADD and ADHD. So this actually we had covered up long time back also in these sessions. So this means a lot of hyperactivity issues the child is going to show. He will be very, very energetic. He will show a very poor amount of attention and concentration, and so on. And also the child will be extremely impulsive. So immediately he has to do something. So immediately that means he has to do something. So there is no kind of waiting time. They cannot even wait for their even turns. And so these kind of issues. And let me tell you, teachers, also a fact that ADHD nowadays is the most common kind of a neurodevelopmental disorder as well. So we have to be very, very aware ourselves also, and further we have to sensitize not even the parents, but I would say that the whole class, particularly, and every child in the school, so that they are also very much at least they are able to help that child with ADHD and able to at least empathize a bit. The last will be OCD. Of course, this is a majorly type of anxiety disorder. As I said, OCD means obsessions. It can be constant images which keeps on coming to your mind, some kind of negative thoughts. It can be some a particular example is somebody is so much ritualistic that the obsession can be that, okay, I have to worship every day, I have to worship every day, otherwise God will punish me. So this is a major kind of a obsession. And the compulsion is when you are having this thought and you are acting upon that thought. That means it's not only limited to your mind. That means that, okay, if I don't worship every day, God is going to punish. If it's only obsession, then it will be only till here. If compulsion is also a part, that means you will be actually physically every day worshiping God, cleaning the utensils, giving water and fruits to God, and doing your natural the whatever rituals you do. So this is also a kind very dirty. If at all I have not gone anywhere, still I constantly have that in my mind, that I can see a lot of dust, and I feel it's very dirty and I won't be able to touch anything now. So if I touch anything, it will be dirty. So eventually what I'm doing, I am washing my hands repeatedly in order to lower down my obsession. So this is how OCD works. uh, Okay. So most common mental depression. So I can see some members are still joining in. So just give me a second. Okay. So depression means, as I said, this is the normal range of mood. So something going lower than that is derived as that the person is having depression or some symptoms. So depression, if as teachers you want to identify in anybody or as parents even, so there are 3 4 main features or cardinal features you can say, or symptoms. Feeling sad, or I am feeling low, or one can say I am feeling unhappy. Second main feature, it will be lot of tiredness, lot of fatigability. So that means the same amount of walk, these many steps or these many kilometers you used to walk every day, but suddenly since past 1 or 2 months you are feeling little bit lazy, you are becoming very very tired once you are coming back from the walk. So that means lethargy is getting in. So that is also one of the main symptoms. And the third will be uh, for example, for me, pleasure can be watching Kapil Sharma or watching any kind of funny web series or any kind of funny event serials which are coming. So apart from that, so till yesterday I was having a lot of enjoyment while seeing any kind of funny element, but suddenly all my pleasure, I am not able to feel the pleasure as much, and also I am not replacing the pleasure. I'm just either lying down or I'm just switched off the lights, and I'm most of the time I'm just in my own room. So these are 3 main symptoms if you actually want to identify anybody with depression. But yes, it definitely comes along with other symptoms as well: a feeling of guilt, feeling of punishment, feeling of hopelessness, worthlessness, and even suicidal. So we have to just understand as individuals that suicide, when it comes, it doesn't come when we talk about mild depression. It comes when we start talking about severe level of depression. So if it's a request to all of you, we are as individuals, maximum we can do what maximum we can do is to identify, to at least observe any person or any child for that matter having these symptoms, and then creating a lot of awareness so that that child or that teenager doesn't even go to that severe level. So maximum what we can do is this. So eating disorder, anxiety. So this actually I have already talked about in the last slide. Anxiety, I have already told you the general symptoms what are related to anxiety. So we have to keep on observing those symptoms in children or adolescents. Eating disorder, yes, we have discussed anorexia, bulimia, a lot of binge eating, a lot of irregular kind of eating style, or not eating at all. Why? Just to have a very attractive and a very good kind of self image and a self portrait, which is again a kind of a disorder only. We cannot always ensure that yes, this girl has left eating or something, but also she falls ill due to lack of appetite. So then definitely we are going towards the disorder. Substance abuse, as I said, starting from alcohol, nicotine, marijuana, or any kind of drugs for that matter, it all comes under substance. So yes, how you will identify substance abuse is, teachers, is very easy to understand also. Immediately or slowly you will see the particular person or that teenager will start having or gaining a lot of pleasure from only these kind of substances. Then you will see the person is slowly detaching himself or herself from rest of his friends, rest of the family members. And whenever you ask him that how is he feeling, he may say that, I am feeling very bored, I'm not feeling that great, oh main jab bhi ghar mein hota hu I feel so bored. So it can also be a very much sign and symptom that the child is enjoying only during that time when he is under uh, some kind of addiction or some kind of intake when he has done. So that time only he may say that yes, after smoking whatever marijuana, I feel I get a lot of high. So this is a very common line what nowadays the adolescents say, that I am feeling a lot of high. So what is this? So this is only their own gratification, which they think and their mind thinks that yes, whenever I am doing such substance abuse or some addiction, that time is the best time for me. So in a way, they will start escaping from each and everything slowly and gradually. So please be very careful in observing these kind of very small signs in the teenagers particularly, because nowadays it's a very it's increasing day by day, the number of cases. The last one will be ADD, attention deficit disorder. What I said that some time back we had a detailed session on ADHD. So when I talk about ADHD, it's definitely a part of ADHD, that is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. ADD, what generally we get confused, we say that okay, ye bacha hai, okay, the child has ADHD, but there is a fine line of difference between ADD and ADHD. That is, in this disorder, it's not including the hyperactivity part, over energetic part, or it is not considering the impulsive part. It is only and only focusing on just poor attention and concentration. Yes, maybe lack of memory, but poor joint attention and so on. So we have to be very careful in differentiating between these two kind of disorders. Teachers, very quickly I will just go through this slides, because already a lot of symptoms I have told you, in particular when we were talking about the disorders. So signs in younger children. So if I talk about any kind of disorder, but more or less, please be very very aware uh, in observing these particular symptoms in most of the young children. Changes in school performance, poor grades despite strong efforts, that parents say that my child is going to such an expensive tuition, we spend a lot of money in the books, copies, and the tutor also takes a lot of money. The teachers are also giving remedial classes, but still you will see that in some cases, some that the child is still not able to perform well. So yes, that can be a red flag or the warning sign. Changes in sleeping or eating habits, as I said, maybe I talk about depression, if I talk about substance abuse, a lot of detachment from the family members, from teachers as well, from classmates. It will be very very visible to all of you. Excessive worry or anxiety, refusing. So in ADHD also, the child may or may not refuse to go to school as well. So this is also one of the sign. Hyperactivity, we have already discussed. When you hyperactivity means when you see a child, which is common nowadays, like jumping from here and there, here to there, or doing a lot of risk taking behavior and so on. Okay. Okay. Persistent nightmares. It's again something very common in anxiety. It is very common in trauma related disorders. It's also very common in ADHD also. ADHD, we may be not able to think in this way, but yes, in our checklist also we have this frequent nightmares as an option. Persistent disobedience or aggression, as we all know, it's also increasing day by day. A lot of temper tantrums. So it can be very very common in ADHD, but still we have to be very much open as teachers, as parents, that whatever the early signs we are going to identify in the child, that much good we can do with the child in improving overall. So signs, the earlier one I had talked about in younger children. Just in brief, I will be telling you the symptoms if I talk about the older children or the pre-adolescent. Substance use, as I said, now the teenagers are doing a lot. You can, they keep on, they may be talking for hours and hours regarding all kind of substances. Somebody has tried this, somebody will come up with his or her new experience. So this is very common nowadays. So we have to be more careful about this thing. Inability to cope with problems and daily activities, yes, this can be a very big symptom for all kind of disorders. Changes in sleeping, or this is the same. Excessive complaints of physical ailments. So if a child is having a lot of anxiety issues, so as an adult I can definitely talk about it to you, or I can talk about it with my friend, but teachers, what about these children or the pre-adolescent or maybe the teenagers as well? They may be shy, some may be introvert, or some may feeling little bit guilt that okay, I should not go up and talk to my parents about it. So in a way, what they do is start hiding their feelings. So as parents also, it's my request that always try being their friend first, then start judging them. So after all, it's on you only how you basically interact with your own child. So before it's too late, please be careful of all these warning signs which I've been telling. Changes in ability to manage responsibility, defiance of authority. That means if you say right, definitely the child will tend to say, no, I want to go to the left. If you say left, the child will say, no, I want to go to right. So after a lot of miscommunication, you scolding the child or the child revolting back to you, the child reverting back to you, so it becomes a very confusing kind of a situation and very bad situation. So to cut down on that, be the friend and guide first, and then, as I said, because until and unless we check on this defiance level, I don't think that much improvement can be given in any child. Prolonged negative mood or intense fear. So any kind of extreme fear, that can be a part of phobia. If I talk about anxiety disorders, which is a part of it, phobias, a lot of fear, irrational fears, if you try to expose the child with that fear as well, still the child won't be able to come out of that fear. So that means, yes, there are chances that maybe the child has some kind of fear which is at phobia level. So for that, any therapy, any counseling sessions or any therapy with the psychologist will definitely help the child to come out of that. Negative mood, of course, in depression we know, or in any kind of mood disorders. Frequent outburst of anger, we know this is very common, but it can apply to most of the disorders what we have talked about. So teachers, this will be, so till now what we have covered are the various disorders which comes under mental illnesses, which further comes under the RPWD Act of 2016. So as we know that RPWD had earlier only 7 disorders, then 14 have been added. So this is the latest version what we are discussing about, the latest update, which was in 2016. So when we are talking about mental illnesses, we should know as parents and as teachers also that a lot of a concession, why we are talking about it, that definitely the CBSC, ICSC or the government gives a lot of concessions to these children. So it's not necessarily that a child may be having cerebral palsy, then only concession will be given, or the child should have autism, then only concession will be given. But he or she is definitely given some concession, some basic concessions, depending on the level of mental illness. So we all have to be, aware of this fact. So harmful effects, in briefly I'm going to discuss with all of you. So whenever, like right now I'm talking about mental illness, this I'm talking about so openly because we have been dealing with it, we see so many cases on day-to-day basis, and we know how is it to feel if somebody is having any kind of mental illness. But if I talk about particularly India, so we know our context very well. So whenever even there is example, somebody close to me only. So one day I would just, the person was sharing his problems, very basic problem. So once I said that, okay, so I think, so yeah, what is the problem? You are having anxiety. So, simple relaxation therapy is only suggested by the psychologist. You may visit someone. मैं पागल नहीं हूँ. So coming up with this line from any educated person who is very well aware of everything around him or her, so was little bit surprising and little bit shocking for me. So teachers, what I'm trying to say is, if we do not come out of our own barriers, our own orthodox thinking, I am very sure that any kind of significant improvement in overall society we will never be able to achieve. How? Because till now, as I said, as I shared the example also, till now we always see that whenever we will talk about, okay, you're having anxiety, okay, you're having depression, please talk about it. No, I'm not mad. I won't go to any counselor. So do I look like a mad person? So these are the most common statements which we still get. uh, Rather, I would request everybody, so whenever you can observe these kind of minutest of the symptoms in anybody around you, whether in the children, in students, or anybody in your neighbor for that matter, please come up, talk to that person, and please never ever use what we generally say in our workshops also. Never ever say that, oh, this happens to everybody, there is nothing to worry about. Or you never say, oh, this happened to me, don't worry, when I can come out of this, you will be also very easily able to come out of this. So whenever we say depression, ye kuch nahi hota, so these are very very common statements what we should never say. Why I'm telling you, teachers? Because nowadays constantly we are starting from I'm just forgetting Sushant Singh Rajput's case till now. I think each and every day almost we are at least hearing a lot many suicide cases. So what is the reason when a person, maybe I'm not judging any situation or like that, but in general I'm saying any situation, it never depends that you see a person and then we judge, oh, how can he be into depression? So any such kind of a statement is not worth it, because till the time you are not in that situation, you, I'm very sure, won't be able to understand the pain the person is going through. So please talk to that person, be very open, give all the ears to that person, and never ever judge. So as a psychologist also, what we do, we never go on to judgments, whether he may be a killer also, he may be a rapist also, the person can be into severe depression, or maybe constantly talking about, I want to just die. If I suddenly in the session talk or pass any judgment, so I will be just making the situation worse. So please be very very aware, teachers, of all these kind of minute things. So I'm very sure if we all are aware of these facts, I'm very sure we will be able to come up uh, out of all these kind of problems. So teachers, I will be unmuting all of you. So this was the session from my end. So now any kind of queries or any kind of questions you want to ask, you're most welcome. And also, please, you can tell us, you can unmute yourselves and you can tell us how did you find the session? Was it good? How much informative it was? So any kind of feedback also, teachers, you can give. I can see some people who are there in the session right now.
Madam, personality disorders means?
Personality disorders means, sir, you have to actually, in one line, I won't be able to tell you much in detail. So personality disorders, you can find it on Google. So there are three clusters: cluster A, cluster B, cluster C. So A has little bit different kind of personality disorders which are not that much common. Cluster B has those kind of disorders which are little bit common, like histrionic, borderline. And cluster C has completely different set of disorders. So once you will search it, so you will understand. And
Okay, okay,
each
ma'am.
each personality disorder has its own criteria under it.
Only Google, no, ma'am.
In Google you can find it. If you
Find
have
it.
a lot
Okay,
of
ma'am.
interest, then you can find, you
Okay,
can type
okay,
personality disorders.
okay, ma'am. Okay.
Okay. So
Thank
and any teacher having any question, you want to give us any feedback? But for that you have to unmute yourselves. Okay, so I suppose that it was clear to all of you. I'm assuming that it's clear to all of you. So yes, the same session we will be having, teachers, day after tomorrow in Hindi, the very same session. Then later on, we are going to cover up one by one all the physical disabilities, or for that matter, even blood related disorders, which are covered in the 21 disabilities, which I've been talking about. So like cerebral palsy, thalassemia, and so on, locomotor disabilities, and others also, because we have already covered up the neurodevelopmental disorders. So now so the same session, if any of you wants to attend in Hindi, or you can spread the word, so they can very well attend our session. It starts every day, like day after tomorrow. Now it will be from 5 to 5:45 or 6 o'clock. So you can very well tell them also, if somebody is interested, they can be a part of our meeting.
Madam,
So
tomorrow 5 p.m. No,
no, day after tomorrow.
day after tomorrow.
Yes, day after tomorrow. That's
Did you
Wednesday.
follow the same link, ma'am?
Yes, the same
after
thing in Hindi. The
Hindi, okay.
same slides in Hindi. I will be
Okay.
saying. Then again, we will be having the
No,
session
I'm asking
on
about link, ma'am. Same link or what?
same link, same number, same everything, because it's a series and it's a recurrent sessions we keep on having on everyday basis. And also, if you all want, we for our previous videos also, and also anything and everything related to teaching, I would say. So we keep on having our. You can go to the site as Sri Aurobindo Society, ZIIEI. So if you go to that, so then you can view numerous videos which are available over there. So it's Sri Aurobindo Society, ZIIEI. So if you type it on Facebook, you're going to find it. So you can, whenever you will scroll down, so then you can see all the videos, what we have been giving all through these days. So, okay, teachers, I think there are no more queries now. So we are signing off for today. So have a great day and hope to see you day after tomorrow on the same session, which will be in Hindi. Thank you so much, teachers.